For problem 6, we were asked which of these represent solutions to the equation y cubed equals 64, which you see here on my whiteboard. And we're told again there's more than one correct answer. We need to select each correct answer here. As I take a look at the answers, some of them are integers, some of them are listed as whole numbers, and some of them are radicals, cube roots that have not been evaluated yet. I'm going to again show solving this equation using inverse operations, try to get the y alone and just figure out what the answer is on my whiteboard, and then I can compare to this. Some of you may have just been plugging answers in and making sense using inspection, or plug and chug is another way to refer to substitution. If we were plugging some of these answers in, that would be a great method. I'll show you a second method on the whiteboard here. So if y cubed equals 64, again from our discussion as class on part C and part D for the explore problems, the inverse operations of exponents are roots. The third root, or the cubic root, is the inverse operation that cancels out the exponent 3. So if I take the cube root of y cubed, that's just going to give me y. Y to the third power is what gives us y cubed, so that's how these inverses cancel each other out. Any operation I do to one side, I need to do to both sides of the equation. So I get y is equal to the cube root of 64. Hopefully, we recognize the cube root of 64 at this point. It's not going to be 8. That would be a distractor. That's just the square root of 64. The cube root of 64 is going to be positive 4. 4 times 4 times 4 gives us 64. So because of that property, the cube root of 64 has to be 4. You might ask, could it also be a negative 4? I'd see here if I did a negative times a third negative, we'd end up with a negative 64. So because of this, that's the reason that negative 4 is actually not going to work for this problem. So as we take a look at the answer choices, we see our answer positive 4 is sitting here for F. There needs to be more than one correct answer. Remember, our cube root of 64 is what gave us 4, so that's another way to represent the answer, the number 4. But these other ones, these negatives, they're hoping you're confused from some of the x squared problems where we do get a positive and negative answer because a negative times a negative is a positive. But remember, for the third power, we're only getting one answer here. That should kind of ring a bell from what we did on part 3 to the explore problem D. So that's what kind of helps us recognize for number 6 how these negative ones, negative 4 is a distractor. Cube root of negative 64 is also a distractor. And this, they're hoping you accidentally did a square root because 8 times 8 would give you 64. But 8 to the third power, if you actually did 8 times 8, you'd get 512. That would be way too big if we plugged 8 in for y. So those are both distractors as well.